everything. So yeah, I'm just taking your lead. You just give me a shout when we're good to go.
Perfect. This is like the awkward quiet bit now.
Yeah, I know. When I watch my clock on my Mac to go 42, 43. So
it's never awkward with you two.
It's true. No, Mete's behind the screen. I'm like, okay, we're gonna do this, guys. It's gonna be good.
You put way too much faith in me. Okay, we're gonna go live now.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to My Life, My Say. It's quarantine question time. My name is Swazi, and you are in for a treat this evening. We have such a good conversation coming your way. So if you've just joined us, a huge welcome. If it's your first time, if you're joining us again, then welcome back. But you know what to do. Grab your snacks, grab your drinks. We want to hear from you young people. My Life, My Say is quarantine question time. It's hosted by young people for young people. So yeah, send in your questions. Follow us on the socials. Get involved. We cannot wait to kick off tonight. So yeah, about a minute or so to go on the clock, just as people are joining us. Welcome. My name is Swazi. We're going to go soon in about a minute or so. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Quarantine Question Time, hosted by My Life, My Say, in partnership with the US Embassy in London. And we have got such a great conversation lined up for you tonight. If you haven't done so already, grab your snacks, grab your drinks, and get comfortable. And also follow us on the socials at My Life, My Say. You can use the hashtag QQT to send in your comments, send in your questions. We're going to be tracking that and making sure all of that is part of the conversation tonight, because we want to hear from young people. So we're going to go live in about 30 seconds or so. I'm going to introduce to you your very special guests who have very, very specially joined us tonight for such a big conversation. And so lock in, throw in your questions, throw in your comments. We want to hear from you. We're going to go live very, very soon. What's happening, guys? It's Swazi here, and we have got such a great conversation coming your way tonight. You need to know that we have got two special guests that we're very, very excited to have. And if you're joining us for the first time, welcome to Quarantine Question Time, hosted by My Life, My Say, and in partnership with the US Embassy in London. So this is a pretty big conversation. Make sure you've got everything that you need. Follow us on the socials at My Life, My Say, and use the hashtag QQT to get involved. We want to hear from you young people, and it does not happen without you. We have got a Q&A session at the end of the event. That's your time to shoot in all of your questions. And if you're joining us, whether you're in London, outside of London, in the US, or wherever you are, let us know in the chat. We want to know who's joining us from all over the pond. So yeah, always, always, always good to have so many young people jumping. We're actually going to go live in about 30 to 20 seconds, and I'm counting down. So grab your snacks, grab your drinks, and then we're going to kick things off. Good stuff. Well, good night. Good night, good night. Good evening, should I say. My name is Swazi, and I'm here to host the next edition of our Quarantine Question Time, hosted by My Life, My Say, in partnership with the US Embassy in London. If you are joining us for the first time, we want to say a massive welcome. If you're visiting us again, hello, and we cannot wait to do these events in real life. So for you who are joining us for the first time, head over to our socials at My Life, My Say, or go over to our YouTube page. All of our events that we've done in the past are uploaded there, and we've been doing these events really to kind of keep you plugged all the way through what's been a really difficult time, right? So much has been happening since the pandemic hit, so much has been happening since lockdown, and so we really wanted to serve up these events to kind of keep you plugged with what's going on in the world of politics. And in the run-up to the US presidential election, we hosted a series of some incredible events to keep you informed, to keep you posted on all that's going on. And if you want to watch any of them, make sure you head over to our socials at My Life, My Say. Follow us on Twitter, follow us on IG. We're all over the socials. Send in your questions and your comments using the hashtag QQT so we can draw all of that in and throw into the conversation tonight as well. And so before we kick off today, you know who I'm going to invite up first. Someone who is the man behind the plan, the guy who's got all of the technical glitches going on behind the screen. So without further ado, please let me introduce to you Mete Koban, OBE, the CEO of My Life, My Say, to say a few words about tonight's event.
Thank you, Swazi. I mean, I never know how to follow your energy, and you always put me on the spot on all of these events. So hopefully I could do my best to kind of follow up from that energy. But firstly, massive thank you to everyone who's joined us here today. It's been an absolute journey since last year. Swazi, you remember, we've actually engaged with thousands of young people, over 27,000 people to be precise, on Zoom since the start of last year, throughout the whole of our Quarantine Question Time series. And we've had over 4,000 people specifically for the Quarantine Question Times and the Instagram lives that we've done for the US presidential elections, which has been further amplified by loads of young people who are getting in touch with us, just wanting to know what's happening in America, because we know that everything that happens in America affects us. And actually, it's my 1-year anniversary of the IVLP program, which I'm sure some of our next speakers will probably know about. I just had a Facebook reminder saying that I went to America, DC last year, and I had to return back. And it's been a fantastic opportunity for me and people like you to understand why this relationship between the UK and the US matters so much. But just to say to everyone, thank you so much for your support for My Life, My Say. You know, My Life, My Say exists to give people like me and Swazi, people from our communities, a voice in politics, because we know we desperately need it. When you look at the inequalities that have been exposed and amplified by COVID-19, we can see that so many young people are suffering with mental health issues. Their careers have been halted. They're losing their houses, their rents. Everything is just, it's a big problem right now. So we need to make sure that young people are really at the heart of this conversation about how we rebuild a better future. And, you know, I'm quite hopeful about what's going to happen in America. I think, you know, it's great to see that some of the issues around racial equity, climate change, these are the issues that young people really care about. And I really do hope that we can kind of connect young people from the UK and the US to really kickstart this conversation, because that relationship is extremely important. And finally, I just want to say a massive thank you to the US Embassy in London as well, because, you know, too often it's easy to, you know, like, I don't know, there's a lot of organizations who talk the talk and say things, but the US Embassy has been truly behind us to make sure that young people in the UK are fully informed about what's happening in America. And, you know, we've reached hundreds of thousands of people on social media through our social media reach, thanks to their support. So we're really glad that they really value youth engagement. They don't have to do that. You know, if they wanted, they could just deal with their citizens in the UK. But they actually go that one step further, recognizing that actually there's a real importance of engaging with young people here. And we're really glad to have been sort of been partnering with them on this. So on behalf of my team and, you know, the wider community that engages with My Life, My Say, I want to say a massive thank you. And then finally, a massive thank you to John Podesta as well. I mean, who else can you get better to talk about, you know, the life of a president? You know, this is someone who's been chief of staff to President Clinton and, you know, counselor to President Obama, people who we all admire and adore. And, you know, like, you're not going to get any better insight from anyone else. So we're very extremely lucky to be joined by him today. And I'm sure that you'll be enjoying the event coming up. So I'm going to leave you with Swazi, and I hope you all enjoy the event.
Thank you so much, Mete. What is there left to say? He's taken all of my speech, guys. But a massive thank you as well to Mete. He's too humble to say, but My Life, My Say really has done an incredible job in the last year. I mean, we're coming up to a year's anniversary of being in lockdown and the different ways in which you've had to live, and to come on to Zoom and to come on and do these events. We really do want to say a massive shout out to the US Embassy, because we've done quite a few just to keep ourselves plugged with what is going on over in the US. And of course, as Mete said, how does that impact us here in the UK as well? We're going to move on and say hello to our first special guest tonight. So we are very, very lucky to be joined by Yael Lempert, who is the Chargé d'Affaires of the US Embassy in London, who will give us an introduction on behalf of the embassy. I am so happy to be saying hello again, and look at the gorgeous background as well. Yael, it's so good to have you back. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Swarzy. Thank you so much. It's great to see you again, and good evening, everybody. It's really great to be joining up also with My Life, My Say again. As Mete knows, we're huge fans at the US Embassy. And Mete, thank you for your kind words. We really do feel very passionately about engaging with youth in the United Kingdom. So we really appreciate the opportunity, and happy anniversary. I'm not going to speak too long because we've got a truly fantastic speaker for you today in John Podesta. As you heard, he was chief of staff to President Clinton. He was a senior counselor to President Obama. I could go on and on, but basically he knows American governance like the back of his hand. There is no better person to be speaking with us this evening. And so like you, I am really looking forward to hearing his perspective on the first 100 days of the Biden-Harris administration. And I can say from my perspective, for everybody working in the US government, it has really been a whirlwind of activity for the last few months. We've seen a lot happening, both at home and abroad. Obviously, the major priority for our government, like so many others, is getting COVID under control and facilitating an economic recovery. And just like here in the United Kingdom, we're racing to get people vaccinated, to protect lives, and move towards some semblance of normalcy. But we've also seen a lot of action on the international stage, particularly in terms of something which is going to be one of President Biden's top priorities, addressing the climate crisis. Mm-hmm. And the window for action, I think, as everybody on this call knows, the window for action is closing if we're going to avoid the most catastrophic impacts of climate change. And so there's no time to waste. So far in the Biden administration, we've rejoined the Paris Agreement. We've welcomed former Secretary of State John Kerry as a special presidential envoy on climate change and started working on achieving net zero emissions by 2050. The United States is going to be working very closely with the United Kingdom on this, as well as with other countries across the world. We believe strongly in the importance of working with partners to achieve progress. And that's obviously not just a good principle for government, it's a good principle for our everyday interactions as humans. And so I love the fact that we've got so many young Brits listening in today, finding out more about the United States and what we're doing around the world. Because I personally hope to see more partnerships across the Atlantic between young Brits and young Americans. We've got so much in common, so much to give to each other, and so much, frankly, that we can achieve together. We care about the same things. And I think that over the coming period, we're going to do what Brits and Americans have done through history, which is we find solutions together. So that's my plea to you, the UK's next generation of leaders. Please stay motivated, engage with us, and let's work collectively from both sides of the pond on a better future. And with that, I'm going to say no more. I'm passing it back over to you, Swarzy.
Yeah, thank you so much, honestly. And just before you head off, just before you go, myself, My Life, My Say, Mette, all of us really do want to echo just how thankful we are for you. I mean, so much of the conversations we were having last year in the build up to the President's Cade, everything that we were talking about, you were really helping us to get those, not even just the guests and everything, but just to really hone in on these conversations. And as you said, the US and the UK, that relationship and how we come together to make these solutions, oh my gosh, it doesn't happen without yourself and the work of the US Embassy. So yeah, a real, truly heartfelt thank you, both from myself, Mette, all of us. We just want to say a big, big thank you. Yeah, it's been
right back at it. Thank you. Thank you.
We'll see you soon. We'll see you soon. Guys, if you've just joined us, welcome, welcome. My name is Swarzy. You are joining us tonight for the next quarantine question time. And without further ado, I want to introduce to you someone who we are very, very lucky to have tonight. Please, everyone, welcome the incredible. It's John Podesta joining us tonight. Hello, sir. How are you doing?
Hey, well, I'm great, Swarzy. How are you?
Yeah, good. Thank you.
Great.
How's your day been so far?
Pretty good so far. Yeah.
Well, it looks a lot warmer and a lot sunnier where you are.
Yeah, it's just beginning to start to warm up. We just, turned into March. Spring is beautiful in Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
Really the nicest time of the year here. So we're looking forward to that. The cherry blossoms coming out and everything. But I want to thank you for the opportunity to do this. And I want to thank Mette and My Life, My Say. And I want to thank Yale for what a great diplomat we have over there in London. And it's really great to see people projecting American values in with that kind of passion. And I spend all my time these days working on climate change. So the fact that our top diplomats are selling it over there is music to my ears.
No, we got your back. We've had so many great conversations, so many thousands of young people join us as well. And if you are watching, to be fair, make sure you follow us on the socials and My Life, My Say. Use the hashtag QQT, because not only will John be taking my questions, but we're asking him all of your questions as well. And so for those of you who don't know just how lucky we are joined by the former White House Chief of Staff to President Clinton and Counselor to President Obama. And it has been 1 month since the inauguration of the new president and the start of this new administration has already been defined by its different approach to policy and an alternative political vision, right? So with John's key insight, your experience, John, your expertise from your time in the heart of the office, we really will be looking at what we can anticipate from this new diverse leadership. So tonight's conversation is going to be based on dozens of your questions that we've received in advance of this event. So before we get cracking, I need to lay down some of the ground rules and just take you through how tonight is going to work. So at the bottom of your screen, you can see a few functions, and one of them being raise your hand. So throughout the event, you'll have the opportunity to make your own comments, ask your own questions. And in order to do this in a fair way, we just want you guys to click that button to raise your hand, and we'll call your name so you can unmute yourself and chat to John. The other function is Q&A. If you prefer not to speak, that's absolutely fine. You can type away in the chat box, and we'll pick up your comments and your conversation stuff still in the same way so that we can add your voice as well to the convo. And also we've got live polling. So if you prefer not to speak and you want to practice democracy in action, we've got this poll ready for you to go. It's going to pop up in your screen. So hopefully it's going to happen because I want to know, what do you guys think? And John, I would love to get your thoughts on what you think the top answer will be. So your question is, what issue should President Biden prioritize during his 100 days in office? So you've got climate change, which I know, John, you're super passionate about. You've got cybersecurity, economic recovery, foreign policy, jobs, mental health, racial equality, and technology, and also tackling poverty. There's a lot of options there, so make sure you vote. Make sure you click which one you think. There's multiple choice as well if you want to click more than one. We're going to come back to the end of the event and make sure that we reveal the poll results. But John, I would love to get a sneak peek of what you think. So out of all of those options, which one do you think President Biden should prioritize during his first 100 days in office?
Well, I picked climate change, racial equality, and jobs. And on top of all of that, obviously, has to be getting on top of the COVID crisis. Yeah. But one of the things I think that candidate Biden did a terrific job of was weaving those ideas together that we had to, in order to come out of this COVID crisis, in addition to sort of getting on top of the public health crisis, getting vaccines distributed, getting people to mask, getting people to social distance, having a professional direction coming from the top, putting Tony Fauci back at the podium so he could let people know what was really going on. In addition to all that, we had to build a recovery that was going to build a more just and equitable economy. And so that's why I picked those different buckets. We have simultaneous crises going on in the country, and I think both President Biden and Vice President Harris have been talking about that, and they're interrelated. I think young people really understand that probably better than people my age, which is that the COVID crisis, the economic crisis, the racial justice crisis, and the climate crisis need to be solved together with an integrated approach to building an economy that's going to work for everybody. So that's the project that President Biden promised the American people, and I think he's off to a pretty good start.
Yeah, thank you. And I love what you said about things need to weave together, right? Things have to be gelled together because they're not separate from one another. These are our lives, and these are the things that really impact us. And as you said, young people, we're really vocal about some of these issues. So to blend them together, I think is one of the best approaches to really take. And so for yourself, we want to kind of get into this conversation because I guess the first 100 days that are so focal, such a focal point of any presidential administration. But for yourself, knowing that you've got tons of experience, tons of expertise, tons of knowledge, really, what are those markers of a successful first 100 days?
Well, it's people, action, policy, and I think projection of what your values are at home and abroad. So people, you have to stand up a whole of government, really. The U.S. system, as you know, has more political appointees in the executive branch than in the UK system. About 4,000 people are coming into government who will lead the government, and that includes picking a White House staff that can hit the ground running, functioning, putting priorities in place, telling the story you need to tell to the American people, selecting a diverse cabinet, which the president has done. Back to some of the previous topics. One of the things I think he's done is put a climate screen, and he's put climate champions in to these really across the board, but certainly in the key agencies. You have to have action, and I think as Yael noted at the beginning, from day one he re-entered. Triggered the process to re-enter Paris. Now we have re-entered Paris. And on the climate front, he issued a series of executive orders directing the federal government to tackle the racial justice crisis. Right. He's built the White House through a series, again, of executive action to reverse the worst of the assault on the environment that Donald Trump had made on environmental protections that go back on a bipartisan basis for many presidents. Trump was probably the most anti-environmental, certainly the most anti-climate president we've had, amongst other things. I won't get started. I won't go down that track.
We haven't got time.
It's hard for me not to, but I will resist the temptation. And but he also, triggered a sort of a new level of ambition. To begin to kind of build that economy that's going to put people to work, doing the work that needs to be done, and doing it in the communities that have been particularly left behind, particularly communities of color, frontline communities, fence line communities that have borne the brunt of the fact that we have environmental injustice. They're the communities that are sited next to industrial facilities, next to power plants. They've borne the brunt of a health system that's unfair, particularly to communities of color. We've seen that exposed in COVID, where the health disparities are so much greater amongst the Native American communities, particularly people living on tribal lands, the Black and Hispanic and other people of color in this country have been hit harder by COVID. So he's done all that. And the 100 days really is a reference to Franklin Roosevelt trying to push forward legislation to get us out of the ditch and particularly this deep economic shock that we had as a result of COVID. And in that regard, he's put forward a program, first installment of a program before Congress, and they're acting on it. It's in front of the Senate now. It's already passed the House to provide relief for the COVID crisis and provide the support that's necessary to make sure that vaccines are equitably distributed, et cetera. He's coming behind that with a major set of legislation that will make the kind of investments that the United States needs to create a fairer society.
Yeah. There's so much there already, and I've got tons of questions to get through. But just to jump back to one of your points, and I know a lot of young people on this call are going to be really passionate about knowing some of these questions I'm about to ask. But so many of us just want to know about the practicalities of what the whole operation of the Oval Office looks like, right? We see so much of it from the outside, but given that you know the inside scoop, we would really love to know what it looks like. And as someone who has previously served as Chief of Staff to President Clinton, what does that process look like? The recruitment of staff, formulating new policy, all of it. What does it take and what does it look like?
It's the White House is in some sense pretty small. There's only 500 people that work in the White House office. About another 300 work on the National Security Council staff, but that's still relatively small. And you think that the U.S. government has 2 million civilian employees, another 1.2 million people in uniform. So it's a relatively tight group of people. They're organized by function, whether that's policy or communications, led by a chief of staff. The president's chief of staff, Ron Klain, and I have worked together for many, many years through many political campaigns and worked together in government, both in the Clinton and Obama administration. So he's a terrific pick for that. Maybe relevant to what governance is like in the UK, the White House is a house. The guy, the president lives above the store, as it were. And it's small. You feel like you're living, like number 10, you're living in an environment where it's I think that, shocks people, even people like myself who had worked on Capitol Hill before, where you have these, or in federal agencies or ministries in the UK context, where, you have big office structures and this is different. You're on top of each other. You're confronting each other in the hallway. You're sitting in the Oval Office together with the president. The Oval Office is, as big as a large living room.
Right.
And there's a kind of majesty to it. But it's also, it's very intimate in a way too. That's, I think, it's just, I've talked to some of my friends who are working now there, and of course it's COVID, so not everybody's back to work. Some people,
right.
A lot of people are still working from their homes.
Yeah.
But just finding your way around in the warrens of a house of the West Wing,
yeah,
is getting lost. Showing up and realizing you're standing in front of the Oval Office, and trying to figure out where the ground floor is and where the Situation Room is in the first couple of weeks is really like it's kind of an exciting and somewhat shocking experience.
Yeah. No, I love that answer because it humanizes the experience, right? To know that it is a house, you do bump into each other and you do get lost. I mean, I know that not everyone's back to work, but if I was on a Zoom call with someone in the White House, I would not be complaining. So that's a really interesting answer to think there's an intimacy there. And I think that's really important to have as well.
When I first went to work for President, on day one with President Clinton, I had a job called staff secretary. I was the person that managed the paper flow to and from the president, which was a senior level job there. And I was the first person back to the White House after the inauguration, because there's a lunch that follows. And I had some official papers and duties that I had to come back for. And I walked past I'm literally trying to find my office. I walked past the Oval Office and they were rolling up the carpet and taking down the drapes. And so that's what I thought peaceful transition of power meant, at least in 1993. This time around, it was a little shakier, with the assault on the Capitol and everything else. But, it goes fast, and you got to just, 12:01 to, at 12 o'clock, he becomes president. And all that weight falls on his shoulders, and of course the vice president to share it with him.
Yeah. Oh, what an incredible story! I kind of want to just touch more on these stories, and then we'll jump into some of the other things that I think are a little bit more heavyweight. But we've had so many questions come in. Someone has asked us, "What's it like flying in Air Force One?" They want to know your experience, and what was that like?
Well, I would say it's very cool in two regards. One is the thing that the staff did, which the crew hated, but was a lot of fun, was the only time in my life that I was able to stand up on takeoff. And when you do that, you can spread your arms out and you go down to about a 45-degree angle to the floor.
With your heart like this.
So it was like, I'm a big roller coaster aficionado. And it was the closest thing to be able to kind of lean into the takeoff. And of course, you can't do that on any other planes because you don't have the ceiling height, and the flight attendants are not going to let you get out of your seatbelt. So, that was fun. But when that big plane landed, no matter where you were in the world, but particularly places that weren't used to seeing it, that is something to see the president get off the front steps of the plane. Yeah. Particularly when you're in the far reaches, of the world, people just get excited because they see that big blue and white airplane with the American flag on the tail. And that is just, kind of a super exciting experience.
Yeah.
But it's a good way to travel, I have to say.
Yeah, it's one way to travel and get about. And I suppose on the back end of that, and Mete's going to say, Swaz, this isn't part of the convo, but has there been a moment that's been as exhilarating in politics for you? Something that you've just had, you know, an inside scooping, or you've just been at the right time in the right place, but something that's made your whole heart, made your whole being feel like as though you're still there, you know, but it's been exhilarating in the sense of politics, something you may have achieved. I mean, yeah, greatest moments kind of question. What's been really exhilarating for you?
Well, you know, look, these winning is exhilarating and losing is crushing. And so, you know, I was with Hillary when we lost in 2016. So as high as the highs are, the lows can be as, you know, just that low. But, you know, it's, look, the reason I've done this for, I started in 1968 in politics. I was in college. And it was during the height of the Vietnam War, and I was working for a guy named Gene McCarthy, who was challenging President Johnson from the left as an anti-war candidate, or as an anti-war candidate, really. And I've always thought the reason you were in it was because you wanted the country to move in a certain direction. Right. And the reason you wanted to win was because you thought your ideas were better than the other guy's ideas. Yeah. I feel more and more like that. And, you know, that's 52 years ago. But, you know, it's still the same for me, that you're in it and it's exciting. It all comes down to one day. You know, you might vote over a period of you know, a month or so. But the results, you know, you're seeing them real time on election night. And when you win, it's just as high as you can be. And, you know, and I've had that opportunity with two presidents. And like I said, when you lose, it's crushing.
Yeah. Wow. And I think it's true of us here in the UK. You know, we were really following along with the US elections. We held a whole series of events to keep everyone posted. Someone like myself, I'm not, you know, I don't even know how it works. So to learn about how things work and to see how the differences and the similarities with the UK, but lots of young people were really following along. And so 2020 has also been a big year for young people, and maybe first-time voters have gone to the polls. So how can President Biden really meet their expectations with a lot of young people turning out? How does he do that?
You know, I think it comes back to what I said earlier. You know, what were his big promises? He promised to create a more racially just society. He promised to get people back to work and to create more equity in the way the economy worked by rewarding work and not letting all the essentially the results of growth flow only to the top. Right. He promised to tackle the climate crisis, which I think was particularly important to getting young people out to the polls and voting for him. And he promised to make the country healthy again and to get on top of the COVID crisis, to expand healthcare. Those are the big promises he made. In my experience, you know, again, I think our just previous guys a little bit different, but the people I work for, and I would think this is true of both President Bush's and President Reagan, they're serious about what they're promising. You know, when President Clinton kept a yellow pad of the things he had promised in the campaigns. And even at the last year of his presidency, he was saying, we didn't get this done yet. We said we would do this.
Yeah.
And, you know, with a philosophy and a kind of clarity. I think that was true for both, again, in my experience, for both President Clinton and President Obama. Clarity about where they wanted the country to go, clarity about who they were. When the Oval Office door closed, they knew who they were fighting for.
Right.
And that's, you know, and they were honoring the people that sent them there, working on behalf of everybody, but knowing that they had run because they thought they could make life better for people. And I think in Biden's case, the oldest president ever elected, I think he had a special affinity for trying to make the government work again for young people who felt disillusioned, disaffected, torn apart as a result of the George Floyd and Breonna Taylor killings this summer, the exposure of the of how much racism still exists in the system. And I think that Biden felt, I think, a particular obligation to say, I'm fighting for you, and I'm gonna try to create a government that's gonna work for you. So, yeah. I mean, I think that they have high expectations, and they should. And I think that like I said, I spend all my time these days, working on climate, trying to support where this government's going, trying to make the, get on the path to net zero by 2050 and all that. But I think that the passion that people bring to that cause, because they know what the stakes are. They see what's happening around the world. They understand what's happening to the natural world. They link the nature crisis to the climate crisis. And, so I think he needs to deliver. Yeah. So that's, that's a lot of burden. That's a lot of burden, but that's just that's the fierce reality.
Yeah. And that is exactly what I wanted to ask you, because with all your experience and all of those intimate moments, what does it take to be president? Because yes, the highs are the highs and the lows can be as low as that as well. But what does it look like when that pressure really is resting on their shoulders, when the stakes are high and you've got a lot to deliver and a lot to come out with, and the pressure is on? So what does it look like to be president of the US, and what sets them apart? You mentioned clarity, but what sets people like the Clintons, the Obamas, the Bidens, what sets those guys apart from everyone else when it comes to being president?
Well, I think a couple of things, again, based on the, people I work with, vision, that they can imagine a world that's different, that they're not sort of working on the margins. They can really imagine a world that they want to try to build. And then I think you really have to be able to take a punch. It's like in the boxing world, if you have a glass jaw, you're not fit for the job. Because they are going to come, and they're going to come with a certain fury. And you have to be able to stay relatively, you got to keep your wits and stay calm and calm the people around you down. Right. And I think the best moments when I've been there in the Oval Office, when the president has basically said, look, I own this. You've got to give me your best judgment, but chill. Think. Tell me what your best advice is. And then I'll own the decision. And that's a lot of weight. If you're basic, and I've seen leaders in other contexts, including in business and academia or whatever, who are quick to point figures, are quick to blame, are quick not to take responsibility for action. That neither builds loyalty, nor does it kind of instill a kind of a sense of spirit that you can move forward together. And you get people kind of shooting at each other in place, kind of coming apart with centrifugal force.
Yeah. And just quickly, you mentioned vision, but what happens when the people's vision and the president's vision don't overlap, or they don't always meet? I mean, we've seen previous presidents that don't seem to be on the same page with some people. So how does a president listen to people well, make sure that the two visions blend together so that it is one?
It's really, really, that is a tough problem for a president. The bars are as much to keep you in as they are to keep people out from the place. And I know that particularly President Clinton, who was like a people person, felt sometimes caged in that confines of the security umbrella. And he got energized and recharged from, like, and I'm being serious here, literally motorcade flying down the street, him yelling stop, people lined up, to see the president drive by and wave at the limo, jump out and just engage people.
Right.
Because you could be so distant from real people, and that's why, I think President Obama always had 10 letters from just average people who had written to the White House on his desk every night that he'd write back to them, that he could, and they were selected not to be just the easy ones, but the hard problems, so that he could feel that, so that you could stay connected, because it's a very isolating experience, actually. You're always in a security umbrella. Obviously you can connect to what's happening in the news and whatever, but that's not always a good judge of the way people are feeling in their hearts. And I think the best politicians get that, learn from it, and know that, I've got to explain what I'm doing to you.
Yeah.
You're not going to always agree with me, but at least you know that why I'm doing it, what my story is, what I'm trying to achieve. And hopefully, you keep a majority of people going along with you. And I think right now Biden's job approval is high, because I think they see him as someone who is, he uses this expression, but it really is who he is, restoring the soul of America. That he's an empathetic person, that he cares about working people, that's why he's in politics. That's what he's trying to do. And I think that's meant something to people, to have someone who, I think they think, there's still a good chunk of the Republican voters, of Trump's voters, believe the election was stolen and he didn't win fair and square, and they're listening to the disinformation that's coming from the other side, including from the former president. But I think for the most part, I think people see a person who's trying to connect to their lives. And in the vice president, in the fact that we have a different story, first woman, first person of color to sit in that office.
This is huge.
First daughter of immigrants. No, maybe not. Yeah, well, first daughter of immigrants, maybe not the first person who's of immigrants to sit there. I think is also something that people, they can see their story in what's going on, and that's helpful. That means something to people.
Exactly what you said, and the word that comes to mind is empathy. People want to know that you can empathize and understand where I am. And so just what you're saying there about the diversity of leadership there, and the different voices, the different people that's behind power. But many people on this call want to know just a little bit about the Obama story, because it always comes off so cool and so calm and collected. But in those moments when it is just you and him and the doors are closed, did he ever have moments where you saw, actually, there's a real wrestle here, there's a real fight, and although he's calm and collected, he really is fighting, and he really is pushing forward to make sure that he doesn't just hear the people, but he wants to make sure that he's like, yeah, okay, I hear what you're saying. I mean, to know that he's getting letters on his desk surely says something about his manner, right? So what does it look like when you've got someone who isn't just cool and collected on the outside, but surely there's moments when you've seen him, just need an extra hand just to encourage him along the way?
I'll start to answer that question by saying I got in trouble with him once. But I said to a reporter that he was a Vulcan in the fact that he expressed no emotion. This was
You shut him down. You shut him down. It's
Jonathan Alter, who wrote a very glowing biography of Obama, and the next time I see him, the next time I had run the transition. I'm back over at the think tank I'm running. I come back to see him in the Oval Office, and he sits down and he says, "So I understand you think I'm Mr. Spock." I said, "Mr. President, you should have better things to do than reading biographies of yourself." And I said, "But I'm sorry if I offended you." But it was, but no, Obama's passion burned. And, you know, he didn't show it. I think that maybe that was from growing up in Hawaii and being cool or something.
Right.
But it really, it burned bright. And he was really kind of animated by injustice in particular. And you know, the times where that emotional break happened, Newtown shootings of those kids, when he was at the Charlestown shootings, and he was at Reverend Pickney's when he sang Amazing Grace in the church.
Yeah. When
that emotion broke, you know, you could see what was behind that coolness. I mean, it was he has a tremendous feel for people, I think.
Yeah.
You know, Bill Clinton wore it more on his sleeve. You know, it was just out there and real, but out there. Obama kept it in. Maybe that a little bit. I don't want to psychoanalyze it too much, but maybe that's the burden of being an African-American candidate, the first African-American president, is that you have to psychologically, you have to keep that emotion in. But when it breaks, boy, it's real and emotional and powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, thank you, John, for that answer as well. So many comments in the chat saying, yeah, absolutely hear what you're saying. Just talk a little bit about the US and the UK next. I mean, loads of young people, we're interested, right? We love these events. We love hearing from you. So how can we strengthen the relationship between young Brits and Americans to build upon our shared values and the vision for the future ahead?
Look, I think it's you know, first of all, it's getting to know each other, you know, and traveling back and forth. And maybe someday we'll all be able to do that again. I kind of hope so. That's one of the things that Mette said, that this, you know, this sad conversation started a year ago. I got my wife and I just got a photo from our oldest daughter with our grandchildren are in high school. And yesterday was, we were in California and we took a picture when we were coming back to DC, not realizing for an entire year we haven't seen them. Wow. So I haven't seen any of my three kids or the grandchildren in a year.
Wow.
I was thinking about this though. I'm going off on a tangent. I'll come back to about being connected. My grandparents left. My father's parents were from Italy. My mother's parents were from Greece. They left. They never saw their parents again. They left as young teenagers. My grandmothers were 15 and 13 when they came to the U.S. and they never saw their parents again. So, wow. You know, a year is a little bit maybe easier to take, but I think that I say that because being able to travel, to connect, to understand, for British young people to see the country, America's a, you know, just physically amazing place. For American students to be able to, or young people to travel to the UK and get to know each other, get to know and connect. There's so much together that is there in culture. But I think the way the relationship really deepens is to work together, to work on these problems of a more just world, of a more sustainable world, of climate change, of racism, etc. Is to try to find opportunities to create. I was talking about this with some colleagues the other day about Biden's called for a National Climate Corps, a part of AmeriCorps, our basic volunteer program, to put young people in particular to work on dealing with the climate crisis. California has a very successful model. It's just started. But that could be a global thing with people from every country participating, participating human talent to try to build resilience, to tackle climate solutions, and to get to know each other better. I think that'll be a great thing for the world.
Yeah. And in real life, I'm with you. I'm hoping that the world will open up. We'll be able to get, fly over, meet each other in person and everything. And so whether it's still on Zoom or whether it's in real life, what issues should some of the UK and the US collaborate on? Yeah. What issues would you like to see both groups have come together on?
Well, I mentioned some of them, but I think that the special relationship still is kind of a strong cultural aspect of U.S., bilateral diplomacy. But I think it's in this people-to-people context where a shared vision about how you build a sustainable and more equitable, just society is where the future lies. It's not just about where we've been, it's about where we're going.
Yeah.
And I think, we need to be on the same, pathway there, I think. I think quite frankly, I think Brexit is, will change the dynamic a little bit, because I used to think that like the path to Europe was through London. And now I think that's questionable.
Right.
But the strength of the Washington-London relationship really needs to stay stout. Common values, common vision, and common projects in building in both trying to build strong domestic societies, but also to work together to build a stronger global society.
Yeah.
And look, I think this is a special year too, with the UK hosting G7, hosting G20, hosting the COP being in Glasgow. There's just a lot of opportunity to spend time, agitating and pushing for a better world, I think.
Yeah. And
I was very involved with the development of the Sustainable Development Goals and UN process in 2015.
Yeah.
Both before I went back to the White House and while I was in the White House. And I think that spirit of solidarity, of leaving no one behind,
yes.
of common destiny, that's either our future or it's a future of division, hate, authoritarianism. And I guess I'd pick the former. There are people here in the United States, and I'm sure there are people in the UK who are peddling the latter. But if you think about the big challenges facing the world, we have to find our way to both a politics and a sense of solidarity as a global community.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you so much. And I'm just seeing some of the comments come in and the questions as well. And just in light of everything that you said, someone's asking, with COP26 and G7 approaching this year, how hopeful are you that the Biden administration can develop a good relationship with Britain to address the climate emergency? And what detail would you like to see? I love that, because sometimes it can feel so broad, right? There is so much to do. But what detail for you would you like to see tackled?
Well, look, I think in order to have credibility, America doesn't just need to rejoin Paris. We need to get our act together. So this climate all-star team he's put in place, the ideas he's put forward to the Congress, those are good. They need to get done. Yeah. And I think he's, the president's obviously committed to that. He's doing a global leaders summit on Earth Day on April 22nd. Mm-hmm. But I think that there's going to be no more important place of coordination than between the team that's been assembled by the Prime Minister and John Kerry and his team to make sure Glasgow is successful. Yeah. That takes both a push to increase ambition across the globe in terms of what's going to actually get done. Yeah. In the United States, that takes the form of sector by sector, like, look, how are we going to electrify the transportation sector? How are we going to get to 100% clean power by 2035, as Biden's proposed? In other countries, it's a little bit different. The EU relies more on its carbon pricing scheme. UK has big pledges now on the table in terms of what its emissions trajectory is to 2030. The big build out of offshore wind in the north in the UK, et cetera. So I think that, but the UK and the US have to collaborate to have a successful outcome. The last thing I will say is that also means trying to unlock the key to finance so that the developing world isn't left out and left behind of this transition. Absolutely. The people who contribute the least to the problem right now, vis-a-vis climate, will get hit the hardest. Yeah. Their water system, food systems, social systems, are going to be most severely affected with the fewest resources to build resilience. And so we all have an obligation, but particularly countries like the UK, the US, the EU, to unlock the mechanisms, whether that's public sector flow or private sector flows, to make sure that sustainable systems can be built globally, in Southeast Asia and Africa and in Latin America, et cetera.
Yeah. And it goes back to what you were saying about everyone being heard, everyone making sure that their voice is contributing to the conversation. Yeah, thank you. We've got time for one last question, and then we have to jump back to the poll to find out the results before we close up tonight. I can't believe a whole hour has gone, So my last question, and if you could give us a brief answer so we can get to the poll. A lot of people are skeptical of effective government action in areas like climate change, among other things. So how would you counter this notion? How do you overcome, people feeling skeptical about these things?
Look, I think there's a reason they feel skeptical. We've kind of churned through 30 years since Rio without doing nearly enough. So there's a high level of skepticism, but I think that doesn't mean you get cynical. You just gotta in a democracy, elections matter. Who you put in office matters. Mm-hmm. Who's gonna get the job done matters. The commitment matters. And just like Obama got the Affordable Care Act done, and Clinton built the strongest economy in a couple of generations, I think that we got to hold Biden's feet to the fire, and that takes organizing. You can't give up on election day. And so one of the things that I think we've seen in the U.S., you've seen it in the UK, you've seen it across the world, is young people organizing to demand solutions and demand action. Yeah. And that goes on. And you know, I have been, you know, devoted my time and energy to try to, even though I'm an old guy, to try to help those voices push forward.
Yeah.
And get that down to the ground. Get that down to convincing communities this can happen. Get the right structures in place. Make the right investments. Put people to work. But it's doable, and I'm excited about the task, actually.
Yeah, and I'm excited to know that the fact that the young people have such fire in our belly, and to know that we've got such an incredible voice to keep pushing for the change we want to see, and that being the heart of a lot of what's going on, that is exhilarating. That's really, really exciting as well. Let me bring up the poll again to see our result from earlier. And so the question was, if you've just joined us, what issues should President Biden prioritize during his 100 days in office? And my gosh, given that we've had a lot of chat about climate change, it is at the top of the table with 67%, closely followed by racial equality as well by 47% as well. So there's lots of things here and lots of things that we've touched upon that have come out true in the poll as well, which means, yeah, we're right on the money with what young people are thinking and talking about. And John Podesta, just thank you so much again for your time and everything that you said, from clarity to vision to being able to take a punch and get back up again. You know, these are great things that we want to be seeing in the first 100 days as well. And so before I wrap up this event, let me jump in again with Mete to say a few words, because I know that he just wants to share a little bit before we close up.
Nothing to share, Swazi, but thanks for putting me on the spot. Just wanted to say a massive thank you to John and the team for being with us here today. We really appreciate it. I mean, it's not often that we get young people with the opportunity to kind of just hear from like first-hand experience from people like yourself. And yeah, massive thank you. And thank you to everyone who's been watching us. You can follow us at My Life, My Say. We're going to be doing lots of things this year. We've got National Voter Registration Day that we're launching in the UK. Previously used to happen, then stopped happening for a long time. So that's going to happen on the April 19th, which is exciting. We've also got a big climate conversation as well, Swazi, haven't we, between Governor of California and also the Mayor of London. And, you know, John, you spoke about climate corps, and that's something that we're looking to bring them into a conversation about what governments can do at a practical level to actually help address this emergency. So lots of things to be sort of excited about at My Life, My Say. And a massive thank you to you, Swazi. Your energy is always the best, and, you know, looking forward to doing many of more.
Can I just say as well, I don't think I've laughed as hard as on these quarantine question times than I have with John and these stories. So John, you were absolutely so good to hear from, you know. Thank you so much for your time. It was a really good conversation.
Honored to be with you. Thank you, guys.
No, so good.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much. We'll see you again very soon. Take care. Good night.
Good evening.
Bye.